Hey everyone, this is Eudith, your local realtor here in Chicago and Northwest Indiana, helping house hackers and investors. I am taking the time to create new content on a weekly basis. So if you are watching my videos, please like or subscribe, show me some support. This is obviously a new channel for me and I'm trying to reach out to my audience to see what type of information is needed out in the public to help you become a more knowledgeable investor. Today I wanted to talk about house hacking and buying a property with tenants in the building. And believe it or not, this is something that you will encounter here in Chicago. Now, if you are buying a building that has tenants in place, this may not always be a bad thing. So if you are purchasing a property and there's already tenants in place, you're going to want to make sure that you obtain the leases for those tenants during the attorney review process if you're under contract. And you're going to want to see if they are month to month or if they're on a year-long lease. Now, you are going to have to honor that lease until it expires. So if you have a tenant that's on a year-long lease, you have to wait until it's expired before you try vacating the tenants, unless they're not paying. Then that's a whole other story and you're gonna have to hire attorneys to evict the person, or you can do cash for keys, but that doesn't always work. Now, if you do have a tenant that is on a year-long lease, then you just wanna make sure that you're running the numbers and that you're taking into consideration their rental amount for the next few months until they are able to vacate. And if you do have someone that is living in the building that is month to month, then that is the most ideal situation because then you can give them a 30-day notice, and that may vary depending on how long they've been living there. Here in Chicago, if you've been living in the property for a year, I think it's a 30-day notice, and if it's anything more, then it's a 60-day notice or more depending on how long they've been living there. But you can give them a notice right after you close on the building, and you can also try to negotiate that the apartment is vacated before closing, but that doesn't always work because most landlords just want to sell the building and they don't want to risk not having a tenant in place if the deal falls through for any reason. If the landlord is selling the building, in most cases, it's because they don't want to deal with the eviction. And in a lot of cases, they are selling the property as is. Now, if you're not familiar with the clause as is, it basically means that the landlord is selling without wanting to do any repairs to the building or give out any concessions. And so in this case, you may want to just wait until you close on the property and then contact an attorney, or you can also back out of the deal if you want. But I have had buyers purchase buildings where the tenant was not paying, and what they did is they negotiated the price down even further, or they asked for some type of credit, which the landlord was very happy to give, considering that, you know, they didn't have any power to evict the tenant. So keep in mind that if you are house hacking, that you're gonna need at least one of the units available, because lenders will take a look at that information to make sure that you're able to occupy one of the units. And if you do have two tenants in the building, what you can do is show the lender that, you know, one of the tenants is going to be vacating, and you can send the lender a letter showing that they're going to be vacating. But keep in mind that in most cases, lenders are going to want to see that you're able to live in one of the units. So ideally, if there are two tenants living in the building, at least one of them should be month to month, so then you can show the lender that, you know, you can occupy the unit with giving the tenant notice, a 30-day notice, whatever the case is, that you can then occupy the property, because the lenders are going to want to see that you are going to live there. Especially if you're doing an FHA loan, lenders are going to need to see that you are occupying the unit. And I think most lenders have like a 90-day rule where they need some type of letter indicating that the tenant's gonna leave by a certain date to fulfill that requirement of you residing in that building. Now, one way of vetting the tenant without actually meeting them is taking a look at the condition of the property while you're inspecting the premises. You're gonna wanna see if that unit is clean. Do you see any leaks around? If the tenant is already there while you're inspecting the premises, even better. I actually really like it when the tenant is present when I'm inspecting the premises, because it gives me the opportunity to ask them the questions that I wouldn't otherwise have the chance to ask the owner. So I'd ask, how long have you lived here? Have you had any issues in the building while you've been here? Now, some tenants may be a little bit hesitant to answer them, but in a lot of the cases that I've experienced, they're usually pretty open to giving you the truth and responses. Now, in many of the cases that I've experienced with asking tenant questions, they're pretty transparent and they want you to know if there are any issues, especially if their current landlord isn't taking care of them. Because in most cases, they want those things resolved. Now, if you do end up liking the tenants and you like what you see, the condition of the property is in pretty good condition, then what you can do after you close on the property and the tenant is, for example, month to month, then you can go in there and you can raise the rent. You can also give them a 30-day notice to vacate the unit. And it's just a basic non-renewal agreement that you can send via email, letting them know that you don't plan on renewing their lease, and you give them 30 to 60 days to vacate the unit. And like I mentioned, if that doesn't work, then you can do cash for keys. But again, that doesn't always work. And just as a little helpful tip, if you are doing cash for keys, do not give them the cash until they vacate the unit. You never want to give them cash before they leave the unit. And if you have a tenant that is on a long-term lease, then you need to wait until the lease expires to either vacate or raise their rents. And you're going to want to include these numbers when you run the numbers to see how profitable you are each month. So all in all, it's not a terrible idea to buy a building with tenants in place. You just want to make sure that you do your due diligence while you're under the attorney review process to make sure that you have the leases, you have an understanding of what the tenants are paying. You also want to know too if they're paying utilities. Are they paying gas and electric? Here in Chicago, landlords pay the water, and then the utilities such as gas and electric are paid by the tenants. But you want to make sure that that's the case because there are times where the owners pay the gas and the electric. So you want to make sure you have a clear understanding of the rents, the leases, and also the condition of the property and if there's any issues that the tenants have with the current owner. And if you have all this information in place, then you have all the knowledge that you need to take the property into your own hands and figure out next steps after you acquire the building. Also keep in mind that Illinois is an attorney state, so you will have an attorney by your side to help you through the process, so you should be in really good hands. If this information was useful to you, please do like or subscribe or share with a friend. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I am always here to help.